1932, the Australian military went to war against birds, and they lost. This isn't a joke. This is the true story of one of the most bizarre and embarrassing military campaigns in history. Soldiers armed with machine guns faced off against 20,000 emus, and by the end, the birds had won. Here's exactly how it happened. The year is 1932. Australia, like the rest of the world, is deep in the grip of the Great Depression. The economy is in shambles. To reward veterans for their service in World War I, the government gave them plots of land in remote Western Australia to farm. They were promised support, but in reality, very little help ever came. These ex-soldiers and their families were struggling just to survive, fighting against a failing economy and harsh, unforgiving land. But their biggest problem wasn't the economy. It was something much, much bigger. After their breeding season, a massive migration of 20,000 emus descended upon these farmlands. Now, if you've never seen an emu, these birds are huge. They can stand over 6 feet tall and weigh more than 100 pounds. They were a force of nature, tearing through crops, breaking down fences, and draining precious water supplies. To put it in perspective, a single emu could eat enough food to sustain one sheep. With 20,000 of them on the loose, the farmers were losing everything. Desperate, they pleaded with the government for help. The government's solution was unconventional. The Minister of Defense, Sir George Pierce, approved sending in the military, and their weapon of choice, Lewis machine guns. The whole thing was framed as a sort of pest control mission combined with a military training exercise. The media got wind of it and started reporting on it like it was an actual war. In early November 1932, the operation officially began. The military thought this would be over in a few days. They were very, very wrong. The war began on November 2nd, 1932. Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery led a small contingent of 2 soldiers armed with 2 Lewis guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. They spotted their first target near the town of Campion. A flock of about 50 emus. The soldiers set up an ambush, ready to open fire. But just as they took aim, the emus, seemingly out of nowhere, scattered into small groups and ran. The machine guns were useless against such dispersed, fast-moving targets. At the end of the first day, the grand total of emus killed was probably less than a dozen eat hits worse. 2 days later, on November 4th, the soldiers tried new tactics. They attempted to herd a large flock of about 1,000 emus into a kill zone near a local dam. Again, the plan failed spectacularly. The emus split into tiny groups and darted away in all directions. You see, emus can run up to 30 miles per hour, and they don't run in a straight line. They zigzag unpredictably. To make matters worse, the machine guns kept jamming in the heat and dust. The birds were also incredibly smart. They quickly learned to associate the sound of the military's truck with danger and would scatter before the soldiers even got into position. It was astonishing highly trained soldiers were being tactically outmaneuvered by birds. The media started having a field day, mocking the entire operation. Newspapers ran headlines like "Feathered foes proved too much for soldiers." One ornithologist observing the conflict noted that the emus had developed a sort of guerrilla-style command structure, with one tall emu keeping watch while the others fed. The military's embarrassment grew by the day. After nearly a week, they had fired 2,500 rounds of ammunition and had killed fewer than 50 emus. That's an average of 50 bullets per bird. The cost was astronomical. On November 8th, the operation was suspended. The military officially claimed they were withdrawing, but the real reason was the humiliating failure and the relentless public mockery. Major Meredith, however, defended the mission, blaming the emu's incredible resilience and what he called their guerrilla tactics. He famously said, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world." But this wasn't over. The farmers were still desperate, and under political pressure, the military decided to try again. Just a few days after the initial withdrawal, on November 12th, the military was sent back and, this time, they were determined to get results. They changed their tactics, staging more mobile, surprise attacks, instead of trying to herd the birds. This new strategy was slightly more successful. The kill rate improved, but the operation was still incredibly inefficient. The war dragged on for another month. By the time it was officially called off for good on December 10th, the military had fired 9,860 rounds to kill a confirmed 986 emus. That's still exactly 10 bullets for every single emu. Let's break down the math of this failure. 10 bullets per confirmed kill. Think about the cost of the ammunition, the soldiers' pay, the transportal, to take out a fraction of the problem. There were an estimated 20,000 emus plaguing the region. The military managed to eliminate, at most, about 1,000. That left 19,000 emus still happily destroying farms. For the farmers, the problem was completely unsolved. The political fallout was immense. The Great Emu War became an international joke. The Australian House of Representatives held debates where the opposition party relentlessly mocked the government for its incompetence. The military's reputation took a serious hit, and the whole affair became a legendary cautionary tale about government overreach. Meanwhile, the farmers still needed a solution. Eventually, the government abandoned military intervention and instead introduced a bounty system, which proved to be far more effective over the next several years. So why did this happen? It was a perfect storm of failure. The military completely underestimated their opponent. They brought the wrong tools for the job. Machine guns are designed for static, concentrated targets, not fast, scattered animals. And once the mission started to fail, pride and political pressure prevented them from pulling out earlier. But you also have to give credit to the emus. They had their own secret weapons. Their exceptional eyesight allowed them to spot threats from a great distance. Their incredible speed and agility made them nearly impossible to hit. Their loose social structure meant they never grouped up in a way that made them easy targets. Some even say their thick, dense feathers offered a surprising amount of protection from bullets fired at a distance. And most importantly, they were adaptive. They learned, and they learned fast. The Great Emu War has become an internet legend, a perfect symbol of human arrogance versus the surprising resilience of nature. It teaches us a valuable lesson. Military force isn't the answer to every problem, especially when it comes to wildlife management. There are often far smarter, more effective solutions, like better fencing, deterrence, or properly managed hunting programs. So, who really won the Great Emu War? The final score is pretty clear. The emus, they continued to thrive, and their population recovered. The Australian military, they were publicly embarrassed and forced to withdraw. The farmers, they were left with their problem until a better solution was found. The official verdict: emus, -1. Australia, 0. History is filled with bizarre, unbelievable moments, just like this one. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more about the weirdest chapters from our past, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And let us know in the comments, what other strange historical events should we cover next? Thanks for watching, and remember, never underestimate nature. Or emus.